We are so glad you joined us today to get centered, but we have a disclaimer. Being centered really is more of an aspiration than a destination. This is a vodcast where we'll be discussing all things mind and body, mental health, physical well-being, parenting, marriage, healthy touch, anger and how to handle it. What is integrative medicine? How do I meditate? What are we learning from COVID in this quarantine experience? Where do we go from here? You have questions on these topics, and we ask those same questions ourselves. So this isn't a vodcast full of answers. It's one full of discussion, because we're going to tell you right now we do not have all the answers, but we do love a rich discussion and hope you do too. We're Leila-Scott and John Price, the founders of the Center for Healing Arts and Sciences, and this vodcast is hosted by our amazing team, which is comprised of an integrative group of therapists offering individual, couples, family, depth therapy, and offers support groups for men, women, teens, young professionals, and others. Chinese medicine practitioners offering acupuncture, herbal medicine, food therapy, lifestyle advice, and last but not least, our mindfulness meditation and spirituality guide. Be sure to reach out to us to let us know other topics you'd like to hear us discuss, or to let us know if you'd like to work with our integrative team. We are here for you and offering virtual care as well as home delivery of wellness self-care packages during this time of physical separation. Give us a shout at 713-526-4444 and be sure to follow us on social at Center for HAS. And now, please enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. These are wild, unexpected, unpredictable times right now. And we at the Center for Healing Arts and Sciences have plenty of options for people where it comes to reading a blog about how to keep your kids busy or how to stay in a routine, ways to handle things in that regard. We're going to be putting out back to school self-care kits for parents and kids. We offer child and family therapy. We have all kinds of ways to practically address the issues that are going on in the world. But there's this other piece where it's the spiritual experience that we're having right now as adults without a plan, without a program, especially the working parents, a lot of times, especially the working moms. Everything has changed. We've gotten rid of all the playbooks. And so I think, there's probably a lot of opportunity for spiritual growth and mindfulness growth through these challenges, and maybe we don't have the tools to even do that growing. Maybe we're just feeling frustrated and stuck in a rut. We have Ariel, our mindfulness guide, and also spiritual guide. So Ariel, I thought you'd be a good person to talk to and for us to record this conversation so that other people who are having these same struggles could maybe benefit.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's not like I'm outside this or above this. I'm also my whole playbook and my routine and what I thought was, you know, normal is gone now. I kind of built my life on the assumption of childcare, Chi- routinely having childcare as a support system. And then, there's a lot of other things too that falls into that category. But
Yeah,
yeah, we're kind of all getting swept into this new arena now.
without a doubt. Well, I had kind of an aha moment for myself this past week that so much of my frustration that I can feel these days without the childcare. Um, and of course, there's the disclaimer that I also love having my kids around more, and there's all of that piece too, right? But is that I'm rarely ever able to enter into my flow. Just like you were saying, I'm used to a life where there was a certain amount of hours each day. I could put my head down and accomplish a certain set of things that needed to be accomplished or that I wanted to accomplish. And now everything is very interrupted if I'm even able to get anything done at all. And so, in my estimation, getting into a flow is a very spiritual experience. So, when that is taken away, it feels like part of my spiritual practice is gone. So, I wondered what you might have to say about that.
Yeah, I'm just I think the biggest stuck place for me in the beginning of all this was, you know, wrapping my mind around the like how long it's gonna be. There was like a big deal in the beginning. It was like, oh, I can do this for like a few weeks. I could do this for a few weeks, right? No problem, right? And then a few weeks go by and we're like, oh, this is going to be a few months. And then I'm like, okay, I could do this for a few months. and now and now we're a few months in and I'm like, oh, okay. We might be here for a while and even, it doesn't seem like things are going to snap back so easy. It's going to be a new normal. So,
Yeah.
it seems like for me, I'm thinking about how do I how do I just make peace with that? I don't know. I think about when I grew up in the going to the ocean a lot,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it's like the waves are gonna keep coming. Doesn't It's not about you, right? It's like and if you're in it, and if you're in like living life and you want to be awake, that means that like there's waves, right? So here's you got like three choices when it comes to waves. You got get crushed over and over, right? Which is like definitely a way of doing it. It seems like a denial kind of a way. It's try to jump over it, which works sometimes, right? If
Mm-hmm.
you've got a surfboard or something, right? Or it's not too big of a wave, you might be able to get over it. Or duck under. When you see a wave, right? Like when you start to see it's coming, go under. And I think that's like just it's just a metaphor for what I feel like I'm doing now with this with what's happening is like I'm just need to learn how to just duck under, right? You don't see surfers trying to pound through a wave because they want to get out beyond the wave line so that they can surf. And if you want to surf, you got to get through the waves. You got to go start learning how to duck under and learning how to go deeper and take those big breaths, go deeper, come up for air when the coast is clear, and then duck back under when you need to duck back under so that you can put yourself in position to be coming out ahead, right? And I think about life as and my own life like that too. It's like how do I get back to the basics? How do I let me find the parts of this whole thing that I do actually control,
Right.
right? Like let's go back to those basic things because that's the foundation for everything.
So is the ducking under is that the going back to the basics, or is that going deeper into your spiritual life and mindfulness practice? Like what was the metaphor referencing when it comes to going under the wave?
Yeah, it's all of that, right? It's I've doubled down, more than doubled. I've tripled down my mindfulness practice, right? I went from, pretty consistent daily practice to 3 times a day practice,
Yeah.
right? And it's not like I mean, look, my time has tripled of how much time I spend in meditation and how much I prioritize it because the task is tall, right?
Mhm.
So it's like the stakes are higher for me to be awake and aware, and there's so much more in
Yeah.
it. And I think about it's like, okay, I am in charge of for some things, not everything. Some things you just don't control. It's whatever comes to you comes to you.
Mhm.
But I'm in control of how much media I consume,
Yeah.
right? We talked about this before, right? And what kind of media I consume
Mhm.
and how much of it and when in the day, right? Am I going to do this? Am I going to like turn on the news a minute before I try to go to sleep? Absolutely not, right? That is not the time. Am I going to do it first thing when I wake up? Probably not, right? Probably not. That's not how I want to wake up. So it's like learning how to go back to the things that we actually do control,
So
right?
it's yes, and I don't want to cut you off, keep you that thought, but I wanted to just point out. So it sounds like that your consumption, our consumption of what we read, what we listen to, etc., that is part of our mindfulness practice or not, depending on
Absolutely.
right.
Yeah, I think we have to understand that everything that we do is figures in somehow,
Mhm.
right? So if I'm not breathing properly, that's like going to affect everything pretty majorly. If I'm not eating properly,
Hmm.
Like, I don't know, maybe you'll help me guide me here too. It's like maybe there's a lot in my diet that I could be improving, but if I'm not sleeping properly, then I need to start to work on how
Sure.
do I start to build up that process. So those
Sure.
are like the basics. I think it's fun when you go to the doctor and they go, "Well, how about common sense stuff? Are you sleeping?" Like, let's start there before we start to like diagnose you. I remember when we were just
Like the electronic that doesn't work, it's like, is it plugged in? Have you
yeah,
turned it on?
it's like
Like,
no nobody wants to hear that answer. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, no problem. Click. 6 months into having our infant, I remember I went to the doctor and I was like, I've got this thing and I got that other thing and I'm anxious. And he's like, Are you sleeping at night? I'm like, No. He's like, Okay, how about you just try sleeping? I'm going to prescribe you sleep. How about
I
you
love
start
that
sleeping?
doctor. That's a good doctor right there.
Yeah, because he could have prescribed me something.
For sure. For sure. Well, there was something along the lines that we were just talking about that reminded me of this the notion of just things having a shelf life. It's a lot easier for us to tolerate something that's uncomfortable when we think, okay, well, it's ending next week or it's, ending tomorrow, a year, whatever, just as long as you know when the end is coming, it's a lot easier to tolerate however long you're going to be in that situation. And we don't have any end date to this. And what comes to mind is almost that AA mentality, that one day at a time, 1 hour at a time. You can't, if you're thinking about something that might last for eternity and you don't have necessarily the best relationship to the way that things are. It's hard to work from home when kids don't have childcare. That's not the best case scenario. um, and not knowing when it ends is harder. So even just kind of breaking down time, I wonder if that could be part of the mindfulness practice for
Yeah,
us.
absolutely. Yeah, I think for me, it's what has helped me settle down is also just reminding myself of that whatever this is, it's not forever, right?
Yeah.
Kids are going to grow up, they're going to go off, they're going to do their thing, right? It's like the normal natural processes of life are going to continue, right? And yeah, I mean, I love being home with my son. I love being around to tend to him and watch his first stings and also, right? I want to get into the flow
Mhm.
too.
Yeah.
So, it's a juggling act and it's like I- it's like you said, it's I want to be grateful
Mhm.
and on one hand I am, right? I really really am because it's so like it's so special
Mhm.
to be able to do that and be there with him. And also I have other goals in my life and other things I want to do. So it's a readjusting and sometimes it's starting to say no to things that you used to say yes to,
Mhm.
right? Or learning to say, look, I think one of the things that it's not just, it's saying no to things that suck energy out of me, that are
Yeah.
not giving back, right? And then starting to really be purposeful about what does give me energy? What
Mhm.
does support me? Who does support me? And start to really build those things back in. Things that we kind of took for granted before.
Yeah. So far I'm getting like double down on the mindfulness practice, be extra vi- vigilant, vigilant about what we're consuming in that regard. Um, and what we're practicing, of course, as well, whether that's a sitting practice or a prayer practice or whatever, a walking practice. I love a walking practice. Um, Being much more selective about how we spend our time, who we spend it with. Um, and then there
And
was
mind
something,
your energy, right? It's like part of that is all of this is like minding my energy, minding my like my space, my time, my capacity, right? Because if I was relying on 40 hours a week of childcare and that's gone now, and
mhm,
so something's got to give, right? I don't have all the hours to do that plus plus work plus all the extra stuff I was doing. So now
mhm,
it's just like a reprioritization,
right.
right? I want to have all the things. I
Mhm,
I could try killing myself on the way to trying to preserve all of the, hours of things I used to put in my life. But what's the use of that, right? Who wants to live like that?
Right.
If it was a, look, this is a race to the finish line, right? I agree with you. Then no problem. You know what? I can see the finish line there. This might be really brutal and rough, but I'll get there, right? But I think we're beyond that point now in the pandemic where it's like, okay, why don't we act like this is going to be here for a while and start to readjust and reprioritize, start to say no to some things, start to say yes more to certain other things, right? And start to bring the joy back to life, bring the zest back because we need that, right? It's not a selfish act to take time to meditate.
Right.
Unless you're using it that way, you could use it that way, right? You could use it to sidestep life, but for the most part, it's taking the time so that you can fill up your cup, so that you have something then to fill other people's cups with, right? Especially with our kids.
Without a doubt. And that's something that I've been concerned about is being my age. And of course, I can articulate that this is challenging, but there's probably even aspects of it that I haven't figured out and I'm not conscious of yet that are affecting me, and maybe affecting my mood or the way I move through a day. And then I think about our children and how they really don't have the words to frame what's going on, to be able to express their frustrations. I mean, the level of anxiety I can feel over just the lack of social, like healthy social interaction that a child their ages are supposed to have. I mean, it's just kind of killing me. Um, and so just feeling like almost ill-equipped to guide a smaller human through such an intense stage of life when it's hard for even an adult.
Yeah, it's that's why it's even so much more important to do the care for yourself, for ourselves. Now, it's like, if you felt like, oh, I can't do it for me, so do it for them,
Mm-hmm.
because they're relying on you. If that's the motivation, that's what's going to bring you to start taking care of yourself, right? Because they rely on you and they don't have any other thing to hold them up,
Yeah.
right? It's not like it's expectations of perfection. It's not because nobody's going to be perfect, right? And I don't think the kids expect us to be perfect. Hopefully they don't expect. Well, I don't know. We have to ask John about that.
I think he said, and I've heard before, and maybe it was even Young who said that, I can't remember, I'm going to butcher it, but it's basically the only thing worse than an imperfect parent is a perfect parent.
Whoa.
Really screw up your kid by acting perfect.
Right. And but I think that's what it is lean into like, look, hey, I don't know any more than you do, but listen. And this is what I tell myself too. It's not like I'm gonna give the kid some BS story. I'm gonna give him the truth is, hey, I don't know either. But look, we all have anxiety about what might be. We're all really bad at predicting the future. Really, really bad at that. And so let's look around and see what we have here now, right? We're in a house and we're safe and we're warm and we have enough food and we're okay, right? So that's the how do I do that for myself? I tell myself that when I get anxious. I'm like, okay, Ariel, you're okay. Nobody can predict the future. And it's like, and then I tell my son he's 1 years old. So, right around 1 years old. So he's not having the words for it, but I can see that it's affecting him, right? He doesn't know what, but he's definitely being impacted. And so, so I give him a little bit extra love. And
Yeah.
just like I do for him what I'm trying to do for myself. I give myself love a little more than usual. Doesn't mean I let myself off the hook completely. I'm not wilding out, right? But it's like I give him a little extra love because I understand, look, it's hard for all of us right now.
That really hit me hard because it's like, even though on an intellectual level, I know that self-love is important, and self-love then shows my kids how to love themselves, and it helps me to even love them more. It just, it's so hard sometimes. I mean, this past week I told John, I was like, oh my God, I just practically had to look over my shoulder at who the bully was, because I am mm, just being so mean to myself. And it has to do with how unproductive and ineffective I feel because of the things we're talking about, you know? And so just that practice of self compassion and love, and ooh, that can be harder than anything. I'm much quicker to give the kids compassion and love, you know?
Yeah. I mean, but it's, look, I think we get stuck in this mentality of like, oh, I've gotta do this. Like, it's kind of like a rugged individualism that's bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
It's not true, right? No, there's nothing we done all on our own. We weren't born on our own, right? Like, even the food we eat is not grown on our own, right? Like we don't do anything alone. We don't take our own trash, right? Like we get stuck in those ways. We think, well, it's just me. No, it's not, right? So open up the web, right? It's like, okay, I don't have the love for myself right now. Hey, friend, hey hey person in my inner circle. I'm just calling you to tell you that I love you, and also I'm having a tough time, and I need to hear from you that you love me too, right? And it's a practice,
Yeah.
right? And that's why I actually practice on a daily basis speaking lovingly to myself. It's part of what I'm cultivating in my life because I want that muscle to start showing up in counterbalance to that mean voice that I have too. It's like I think all of us have that. I don't know if anybody's been spared of that, but I just kind of wish it would go away, but it
Mhm.
seems like we just got to work with it.
It does, you know, having the expectation that it's there so that you can deal with it rather than being blindsided by it every time it gets louder. You know, I think that's often what happens to us as humans is we're like, well, life is supposed to be easier. I'm not supposed to have a bully inside my brain, or you know. And so if we can just expect it as part of the truth, so that then we can know how to handle it when it happens. It's the
Yeah.
wave example, right? Like there's the waves keep coming. Just how are we going to handle them?
Yeah, and that's what the beauty of having like people to help, right? It's like, hey, throw me a rope, you know? And it doesn't need to be forever, and it's not a sign of weakness. It's just a sign of, it's actually a sign of strength and understanding. I'm struggling now, right? I
Mm-hmm.
don't have to go it alone.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get extra points, right? I don't know if anybody's keeping points, score or some, I don't know if that's a thing, but I don't think you get extra points for like struggling extra, right? You don't get points at the beach for getting crushed by a wave over and over and over. There's nobody keeping score. It's just your energy that's going to get wasted by not ducking under.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and then the web you're talking about, the community you're talking about, and how like that's how we're built as creatures, needing to connect, but being so isolated, some more than others. You know, any particular mindfulness tips there as or where it comes to staying connected and needing to rely on support when maybe the support can't come to your house because you have kids and they're elderly, or you know what I'm saying, like all of the lack of support that people have for just even taking a break maybe from the kids for a moment, or
Yeah. I mean that's a practical consideration, right? For real, you know, we don't want to endanger people around us. We have to basically, what did they say? Treat your interactions as if you have it and they have it. And neither of you want to give it to each other. And so yeah, that's a practical consideration, and that is really actually just hard. So like I want to just honor that because I think trying to act like it's not is not doing us any favors. And it doesn't, then if we try to act like it's not so hard and it's not a big deal, then we don't give ourselves the compassion when it is hard, right? And it's like a recognition of, look, if I was looking at my life from the outside right now,
Mhm.
as my best friend would, or that as I would for my best friend, what would I say to them? I would probably say, this is hard.
Mhm.
Hey, man, like, you know, take a bath when the kids go to sleep, or, do something for yourself. Go for a run. Get that. I know that makes you feel, sometimes we think we forget about the fact that actually output of energy can be like renew us, right? So
Yeah.
it's like exercise is a super, for me, as a super important aspect of this, because there's a certain kind of energy. Like I do jujitsu, so that's a certain kind of high energy, like uh, exercise that I'm not doing now, and there's no quite one-to-one replacement for that kind of energy. So
Mhm.
yeah, I got to force myself to go for a run. Do I like running? Is it as fun as jujitsu? No, right? Do I like swimming as much? No, right? But I got to do it because it's part of the kindness to myself. Is like I have to think about it as like, okay, I'll feel better
Mhm.
after. And I also use my web to help support that.
Yeah.
Right? So I tell my wife, I ask her to please, when you see me struggling, when I'm fumbling about and I'm like, I don't know if I really want to go on this thing, just
Yeah.
tell me, yeah, exactly. Just go, Ariel, just put your shoes on. You know,
Mhm.
just put your shoes on. Go. Just go. It'll be fine. Like you'll feel so much better after. Right? And so I don't just leave it all on myself. And I have friends who I'm like now in competitions with, and I've made these little games for to kind of elevate it, right? If you have a Peloton, apparently that's a thing. People
Yeah.
like to compete with each other now. I don't have a Peloton, but there's a
Mhm.
lot of ways to do things like that where you're kind of, look, you're not physically going to be supported because that's out of the picture now in a lot of ways. But for now, right? But there's a lot of ways to virtually do it. And we just got to start to bring the creativity back to those interactive processes.
Yeah. It's funny. I don't always listen to my own advice, but the something I used for years without fail, and I would like to, I should say, I would like to go back to is that I've never once regretted doing yoga. I've only regretted not doing it. That's it.
There you go.
That is it. Like there's no
Yeah,
exception
like
to
I
that
can't
rule.
even think. Yeah, I'm thinking of myself. I'm like, when did I ever regret going? Like, even if it was like, quote unquote, like not the best,
Yeah.
which whatever that means. It's like, yeah, but that was like still an hour of time when I was spending connecting with my body and connecting with my breath and recentering.
Mhm.
That's worthwhile.
Definitely. Well, and also just speaking of relying on your community, something that I just did for the first time today with a friend this afternoon is we had an accountability call with one another. Because one of the things I've been struggling with is there's so many things to do, and now it doesn't feel like there's as many boundaries between categories. It used to be like this needs to be done for the house, this needs to be done for the kids, this needs to be done for this aspect of work or that aspect of work or what have you. And now it's just like a big blob of stuff that needs to be done. And so I kind of find myself chasing my tail. Where do I begin? What's the most important thing? And so that was really, really, really nice to be able to say, okay, in 2 weeks when we talk, these 5 things, they're either going to be done or in process, whatever the agreement was, just really, really nice way to re-enter into community and into routine without having
Yeah.
you know a workplace necessarily to go to at the moment.
Yeah, and that's exactly it, right? Sounds like you're starting to get back, build back the community, the connection, the support system, right? Y'all are supporting one another in
Yeah.
getting that, in moving things forward.
Mhm.
And that's what it takes now, I think, to like we probably should have been doing these things all along. But in some way, I think because of the way that our lives used to be organized, we didn't need to,
Yeah.
right? It was clean. I put the kids in and school. I go to my workplace. I have dedicated hours in my workplace, right? And then when I leave there, I go pick up the kid, and there was like these separations, and now those don't exist. And so the things right, think about an accountability partner would have been great for you a year ago too.
Oh, 1000%.
Like, yeah. So now it's like, oh, now I'm starting to lean into the things. This is what I'm talking about when I say go back to the basics, right? Go
Yeah.
back to the fundamentals, like diet, sleep, exercise, spiritual practice, community, counsel, right? Don't try to, it's just like you don't get extra points. I just, you know, whenever I'm suffering something, I turn to myself. I'm like, do I get extra points for this? Do I like is this something do I need to suffer for this for some reason? And if the answer is no, then like okay, so then let's find a way in which I don't have to suffer through it. Let's drop the suffering.
Right.
Look, is it gonna be? Does that mean that all things are gonna be easy? Does that mean I'm never gonna have to do dishes again?
Hmm.
No, right?
Hmm.
It just means that I don't have to do all the extra.
Yeah. Yeah. To use the yoga example again, I mean, one of the trainings I did was with Anna Forrest, and she would say, she would put us through these really, really intense practices, and we'd be at the apex. And she'd be like, half of you are struggling and fidgeting and fussing and groaning. She's like, half your energy is going away right now because you're just struggling. Just be here, and it seems so obvious, but it's obviously not in the moment because there's some sort of a pull, whether it's that old script that it does matter if you kind of self-flagellate and make yourself feel awful, or make it harder on yourself, or forget to rely on community, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak for myself. I think that I also trained myself in some way to like look for that kind of, like, oh, this is how I got it done that one time. Or like, well, maybe I got it done despite that, you know?
Yeah.
Like so it's a sort of like false attribution of like, oh, if I just beat myself up more, I'll be more productive.
Yeah.
I
I'm
mean,
suddenly remembering that as a teen, I can remember having a pride around, like, if there's two paths, I choose the harder one every time.
oh, yeah. I was like, I'm gonna choose the harder one.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, look, there's a wisdom sometimes to not just shying away because something's hard, right?
Right.
I like that. That's beautiful,
Mhm.
right? To say like, okay, if this is more meaningful but also harder, it's not I'm not going to say no to it because
Right.
it's harder. It's the right thing, it's the right path, it's the more meaningful way. That to me sounds actually like beautiful. But to say like, okay, two equivalently beautiful paths and I'm going to choose the harder for the sake of it, that sounds like really hard, right?
Right. That messaging was running deep.
But I think that you're not the only one. I have that, right? I have that in a certain way. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to show. I don't know who I'm going to show exactly. like,
What am I showing?
like, who am I showing? It's like not my parents anymore, you know? It's not my siblings. It's not my like peer group. They don't care. Nobody cares, right? Like, so that's part of it. Is just remind. That's part of like this is what we do for each other, right? In even in this conversation, there's an exchange of I'm learning from you, you're learning from me. We're giving each other energy in this way. It's like this is what it's important, right? So to schedule the time to make sure that it doesn't fall off the plate. Because I don't know if about you, but it feels like in COVID times, it's like one day just blurs into the next, and the next month. It just feels like we're in very, very hot March right
It does.
now.
It does.
Yeah.
That's hysterical. It does. Yeah. Well, what else? Anything that you feel like we should know just as far as mindfulness practice goes at this wild time?
I think it's never been a better time to start a practice if you don't have one. Uh, and if you do have one, never been a better time to like come back to it. And
Mhm.
and maybe don't assume that you need to do it alone, right? Because a little bit of grease on the wheel can go a really, really long way in these practices. So you don't have to just flail around for no reason. Like I said, don't get extra points. And I think for me right now, it's just honor how hard this time is for all of us.
Yeah.
Nobody's like having a party right now. Everybody's having some version of the difficulty. And also remind yourself, I know it seems really hard. Like treat this as if it's not going to pass, right?
Yeah.
Treat it as if it's not, so that you can start to build in some, some wholesome things into your life to get you going, to bring you to, to go make sure you're chopping wood so that you can burn it later, right? So that means practice, that means eat, that means sleep, that means do things that are fun and fill you up.
Mhm.
But also know this too shall pass.
Mhm.
It will.
Mhm.
It will. One day or another, right? I don't know when, but it will. Like everything. And so will we, right? We're also not going to be here forever. So if this is all we have, if these days and these minutes are all we have on earth, just like remind yourself, is this how I want to be spending? Is this how I need to be spending my time? And
Mhm.
if not, then make some changes, right? And if you don't have the power to do it under your own, you don't need to.
Right.
Get guidance, right? Get the help you need. And I'm calling my teachers more, and I'm practicing more, and I'm having the conversations more,
Yeah.
right? Not that I got it all down. I still sometimes I just curl up in a ball, you know,
Yeah.
and I give myself a hug, and I say, and I tell myself it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be okay, Ariel. It's fine. It's gonna be fine, and it does, and it is. It rolls through. Let it roll through. Duck under the wave.
That's right.
And
Okay.
every once in a while, even if you're the best at ducking under a wave, you're still gonna get rolled up. It
Sure.
doesn't matter how good you are at surfing. Eventually, you're gonna
Yeah.
get sucked under.
Yeah. Anything for the people who are really struggling with COVID? It's the fear of getting sick, or the fear of losing their lives or their loved one's life because of this pandemic. Anything in particular that could
I
help?
trust it. I trust the fear. I think that for a long time I was like, oh, I have this fear and it's not rational and it's carrying around all day. No, this is rational fear, right? This is appropriate, right? There's you should be guarded. You should be careful, right? So now the question is, if it becomes immobilizing and paralyzing, then I would go seek help, right? I would. That's the point when I called my therapist, right? I'm in therapy. It's important for me. It's part of my support practice. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's true, right? This is scary, and this is also it's real. It's not. We're not just imagining that something difficult is happening. It's happening.
Right.
So honor it, right? And then take the precautions and be smart and don't put yourself or other people in danger if you can help it. And 1 minute at a time, right? If you're okay right now, so soak up the fact that you're okay right now. It doesn't mean you just like let it all go. It's just
Right.
take that. I think I use that fear in my own life to help me stay vigilant,
Yeah.
to keep it, because I don't want that to go away, right? Like it's
Helping.
trying to keep me alive,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Something you said a second ago reminded me of it. She goes by Byron Katie, I believe, and she talks a lot about, when you're highly anxious about something that could be happening or might happen, that just go back to what's true in this very moment. I am a woman sitting at my desk having a conversation with Ariel. Nothing else is true. I can't even say that my kids are downstairs having dinner, even though they probably are, because I can't see that happening. You know what I'm saying? To just
Yeah,
really boil it down to what is happening right now,
right here.
right here.
Yeah,
In
yes,
my visual field and nothing else.
yeah, and everything else is like a
Maybe,
could be,
maybe,
maybe, right? And so that's part of the being able to de-escalate when you are in safety, right? So
right?
like having that fear pulsing through you when you're in your room by yourself, having a conversation on Zoom. See that's the level where it's important to bring in a practice that a mindfulness practice that you work on it on the cushion, right? And then you can bring into the rest of your life to notice, oh, I'm getting anxious now. I'm getting fearful. Where am I?
Yeah. Where am I?
Where am I? Am I okay right now? I'm cool right now? Yeah? Okay. So can I drop the fear? Let's see if let's invite it to move along, right? And it does, right? Because you've proven to it we're safe,
Right.
right? We are safe right now. And that's the key, right? Is okay, yeah, but when I'm at the grocery store or I'm going to do something higher risk, let's say,
Hmm.
then I can ramp it up appropriately,
Right.
right? And then
Be able to-
bring it back down when it doesn't need to be
Yeah.
running.
Yeah. And I think we were all kind of doing a similar thing. We would just go out in our work day, high alert, come home and have a hard time down regulating to like, okay, calm family time. You know what I mean? You kind of stay on that level of what's going to come next. It's going to, and so it's just a different version of learning how to, you know, be the pendulum
Yeah, and quickly. Right. I
quickly.
think that's the promise of the practice. It's not that you're gonna like it's not you're never gonna have fear. I
Right.
like that's not even an aspiration for me. I would like to keep that fear, that healthy fear intact. I want to stay alive,
Right.
right? It's just that hopefully I can recognize when that fear is firing out of place. When it's
Right.
when it's like, wait, do I need that fear right now? I want to be able to ask the question, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
curiously. Is this necessary? Do I need is this anxiety helping me in
Yeah.
some way? And if the answer is no, then to learn how to come out of it is what a gift, right? What a
Yeah, a
gift.
lot of internal discussion going on, and as I think back to the internal bully, why not acknowledge and give voice to the internal wise woman or wise man? Like these conversations that we can have ourselves, reminding ourselves that we're in a safe space at this moment and most likely don't need to have that level of fear, at least not right now, that we can have love for ourselves and compassion for ourselves, considering whatever circumstances,
Yeah.
we're in.
I like the image of a kind grandparent. I like
Yeah.
it. I call it like bubby love. Like a
Totally.
bubby is like a old Jewish grandma.
Yeah.
Like I like it because it's like can I be that for myself, right? Can I bring myself in and say, "Oh, Ariel, come here, little guy," as if it was a grandma, and like just love him and give him the kisses, and and just tell him like it's you're. I know you're scared, but you're gonna be okay, right? And we can develop that. That's something actually that we can learn to build in our lives, and that compassionate inner voice is a lifesaver, right? I don't know. We never really learn that skill of doing that for ourselves. And there's no reason not, right? We can do that for ourselves too. Not all the time, right? It's nice to be loved by someone else too, from time to time, but to be able to do that for ourselves and to do that regularly is really a gift.
Yeah. Yeah. And if one didn't have their own loving grandparent around or even parent around, having to really find some sort of archetype that, whether that's a character from a movie or somebody they invent themselves
Yeah.
to
Use your
be,
imagination. Mine wasn't the that.
right?
It wasn't my for I don't even have a I've never even grew up with a bubby. So I grew up with a savta, which is the is Hebrew version, and she wasn't cuddly like that. But 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 internally I've built this kind of like imaginative inner character that actually is awake to my suffering and my difficulty. And I actually think that's part for me. I mean, let's get a little theological here. That for me that's the inner divine.
Yeah.
For me that's that spark inside that's saying like that is aware and awake and compassionate and loving, that I'm nurturing the relationship with, that can be there for me when I need that difficulty. I can kind of go, "Hey, where are you?" You know,
Yeah.
and I'm not yelling out into the universe. I don't. That's not the divine I believe in. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I appreciate that. Okay. Did we hit all the high points?
I don't know. Probably it's probably we could go on and on for a while here.
I'm sure we could. I think I got to everything that I wanted to be sure to mention in terms of what the struggle felt like for me and for some of the other moms I've talked to. At one point you did mention breathing. I wondered if there was a breathing technique or something that
Oh,
we could leave folks with.
I have two favorites that I go to. There are my like go to when I can't just take, like, I'm in the middle of it. I can't sit down, and
Mhm.
they're both of them can be done without anyone ever knowing that you're doing them.
Okay.
And you can keep your eye on the little one when they're running. You know, the first one is called straw breathing, and
Okay.
I like it. It's my teacher Sylvia Borstein taught it to me, um, and she said it like this. And I think it's important to frame it. She said, "At every moment, there's always peace. It's built into the fabric of all of this. So it's there, right? Whether you can tap into it or not is up to you. Just call for it and it'll be there." And she says, okay, when you're doing this breathing exercise, you're calling for the peace, right? You're finding the peace that's there. So it's a really quick practice. You take a deep breath and then exhale real slow, like you're breathing out through a straw. Just a long exhale and tap into that peace that's right there. I can see in your face that you can feel it. It's like
Yeah.
I like to I think there's research now that says that the nose is good for breathing in from if you can do that. So I do an inhale from the nose and then a long slow.
Nice. Yeah, it's immediate.
Yeah, it's instant. It's
Yeah.
like, and if I need 3 or 5 of those, I do five, whatever, however many I need, I take that many, and I
Mhm.
can almost instantly like feel that sense of calm. It's not like, it doesn't substitute for all the practices, but it's a good, like, right in the moment.
Absolutely.
And I teach that to people who are in like high anxiety, test taking, and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
the other one is one that's the Marine. I think it's the Navy SEALs do. The snipers do it when they're really in difficult situations. It's called box breathing, right? I haven't made any of these up. I'm not like,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
the box breathing is really nice, and they use it in really high intensity situations to get their wits about them. And it's just basically, as many counts. This one is too much for my brain, so I don't usually use it that much, but I offer it as a tool. It's like if I'm going to breathe in for 2 seconds, then I'm going to hold for 2 seconds, then I'm going to breathe out for 2 seconds, then I'm going to hold for 2 seconds. And you kind of like a box, right? So if it's going to be 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever it is, then I'm sticking to that many,
Mhm.
roughly.
Got it.
Um, Yeah, I don't know. That one is hard for me because it's tricky. I'm like, how many seconds? And then I'm all in my head about it. Did I do it right?
Yeah.
The straw breathing feels a little bit simpler. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that resonates for sure.
yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Good. Yeah, awesome. This is like it's a pleasure for me. So thanks for talking.
Absolutely. Bye, everybody. We hope
Bye
this
y'all.
helped.